friends, I'm Hazel and it is already the middle of the month and I have just created my digital planner for the month of November. But if you are already creating your December digital planner, you can follow along as I show you the step-by-step process on how I create a monthly digital planner. Last month, I have created a Skillshare class on how to create a digital notebook with flipping tabs, and on my last YouTube video, I have also shown you how I have set up my October digital planner using the digital notebook from that class, and I have been enjoying the flipping tabs setup. So this month I am again using the digital notebook from that class, but I will be tweaking it a little. The first thing to do then is to duplicate the Keynote file. The Keynote app was recently updated, so if you already have the iPad OS 16, your Keynote will look like this. So in the digital notebook that we have created in the Skillshare class, this line in the middle leads to a secret subsection which I used as a meal planning area last October, but this month I don't really feel like using a secret subsection, so I will be changing the setup. Let's access the slide layout to make those changes. Instead of having 13 tabs here, I want to have 14 tabs, which are for the calendar page, a memory page, 2 pages for the trackers, and 2 pages for each of the week. After adding the additional tab, I selected all the tabs and then grouped them, then resize. And then after that, ungroup. The changes that I have made are: first, I added a button in the upper right corner of the slide which I will use to link the cover page of the monthly digital planner, and I also changed the setup for the tabs. The first tab will be linked to the calendar page, which is the second subsection, and the second tab will be linked to the memory subsection. The third tab will be linked to the habit and sleep tracker subsection, which is the third subsection, and so on. The steps that I did are similar to the steps I have shown you in the Skillshare class starting from lesson number 8, so make sure to check that out if you are following along. I have placed the link in the description box below if you want to check it out. After making the changes, this is the digital notebook with the flipping tabs that I have created. Now I'm going to export the pages of this digital notebook as an image so that I can use it in the Procreate app for creating the design elements. Once I have imported one of the images in the Procreate app, it is time to add the design elements and create the setup for the November digital planner. I just created this digital illustration and I'm so excited to use it as a design element in my digital planner, so I exported it as a PNG file so that the empty area will be transparent. The first page that I will be creating is for the cover page. For this page, I just want a very easy to create design just to ease me into the creation mode. What I did is I just added the digital illustration to the left side and then add the month and year to the right. And while I was creating this, I kept thinking of the word preparation, so I also added that word here. I have recently been thinking of project ideas that I want to do next year, and I think this month will be that month for creating the foundation of those future projects. And I have been feeling excited to start them, but for now, I'm just gonna lay down the groundworks. And just like clockwork, the dominoes cascaded in a line. The next page I am designing is the calendar page, which I will also use as the memory page. First, I turned on the grid line and set it up and counted the rows where I can write and divided them up for the calendar. I mistakenly thought that the first day of the month is on a Wednesday, but I will change that later on. I've also added the goals area here since I have the empty space and it is already the middle of the month, so I'm not sure if I will be able to maximize the usage of this area, but I like how it looks, so I'm just gonna add that. And finally, I was able to see the mistake I did, and luckily I am working digitally, so the correction process was easy. I also added grid lines to the calendar area and the goals area. But for the calendar area, I decided to make the grid lines subtle. The next page that I am designing is the sleep and habit tracker page. I used to not like adding trackers to my journals or digital planners, but since I have added it a few months ago, I have been enjoying using and seeing them, especially these two trackers here, the sleep tracker and the habit tracker. For the sleep tracker, I decided to use a table format and labeled the vertical as the dates of the month, and the horizontal for the sleep tracker are the time from 8 p.m. to 10 a.m., which is my usual sleeping window. And for the habit tracker, I just added different blobs of color, and then on the side, I will be adding a label for the habits that I want to track. And that is the sleep and habit tracker page. The next page will be the other tracker page, and this time it will be for the mood and meals because those two are well connected. The design is almost the same with the sleep and habit tracker page, so I just copied and pasted the table from that page. For the meals, I will not just use this for tracking but also for planning. And if you guys have any suggestion of a website or a YouTube channel I should check out for easy, healthy recipes, let me know because I am tired of the recipes I know how to cook, so please send help. Now that those pages are done, I am going to work on the weekly planning pages now. For the first week, I first selected the broken line elements and saved that selection, and then added the artwork that I'm going to use as the design elements. Then loaded the selection, and then use clear in the layer menu to erase those areas in the artwork. Then I added the header for this week. I added 1 and 6 in words just to balance out both of the pages. And for the design, I used these wispy lines in the different colors and just labeled them with the dates. And if you are following along and you don't start your week on a Monday, be sure to make the necessary adjustments. Anyway, the colors that I use here for the wispy lines and the labels are from the illustration, and I use the eyedropper in Procreate to get those colors. If you have been a subscriber, you know that I always have a space for journaling, and that is usually after the weekly planning page, and so I am creating one now for the first week of the month. Although I am creating this in the middle of the month, I still journal using Notes or Notion or Xstyles or in my email or whatever note-taking app I have. So this page will still be used because I will be transferring my notes from those apps to here. But once I have created my digital planner, I usually just sit down and write my thoughts using the monthly digital planner I have created. While creating this page, I was playing around the different features in the Procreate app, and I used the Liquify tool to create the background. And after creating that, I added grid lines for writing later on. And that is for the first weekly journaling page, and onto the next page. For this page, the design element will be half of the illustration in the left and the other half on the right side of the page. This page will be the planning page for the second week, which is for November 7 to 13. For the design of this weekly planning page, I was thinking of stacking the daily spaces and then adding a shadow later on. For the boxes, I used the drawing guide to write straight lines and then turned it off and then added the curved corners. After adding the outlines, I have filled the shapes up and then turned the drawing guides on again to add the writing guides. I use GoodNotes for my digital planning, and I wish that I can freely rotate the pages like this without actually moving and rotating the iPad, but for now, that's what I do. Anyway, after adding the writing guides, I thought that it is a little plain, so using the Glimmer brush in the Luminance brush set, I am adding these sparkles here. Now I'm just gonna label the daily spaces with the date and the day of the week. To make the process faster and easier, I have added a text first and then duplicated that and then repositioned them to each of the daily spaces. After repositioning, I then edited them to the correct date and the day of the week. And that is the planning page for the second week. So now I'm going to create the journaling page for this week. I just removed the daily spaces and reuse the other elements. Again, I'm using the drawing guide to help me write the straight lines. Since this is a journaling page, I just added a writing space, and then I will also be adding the writing guides, and that will be it for the weekly journaling page. For the next weekly planning page, which is the current week, I'm creating this digital planner. For the design element, I will only be using the lower part of the building in the digital illustration. But I don't want it to be this out there, so I changed the blend modes of the layer to hard light and then adjusted the opacity. For the design of the daily planning spaces, I'm thinking of using circles. I used this last month and I really liked it. And if you want to see the October digital planner creation and setup, I have linked the video in the upper right corner, and I also added the link in the description box below if you are interested on checking it out. After drawing one circle, I have duplicated it for 6 times to create those 7 daily spaces. I've also adjusted the opacity of the circles so that the digital illustration can still be seen. Using the monoline brush, I have added the guide for writing, and I just created one copy and then duplicated it again for the other daily spaces. After setting the daily spaces up, I have added the header for this page, which is November 14 to 20. After finishing this page, I kind of didn't like the color in terms of the entire digital planner, though I love the shade of green used in the header, but yeah, I changed the color to a more fall or autumn shade. Similar to last month's design, I am also adding the dates in the circles and lowering the opacity to blend it in and make it look like it is part of the background. For the journaling page, I am using the drawing guide in 2D again to draw the straight lines for the writing guide. If you want to have an invisible margin for the lines, you can use the rectangle selection tool, then select the area, then create the writing guide. With this trick, it is much easier and faster to add the writing guides. I'm still not liking this color, so I'm going to change it again. And that is the journaling page for the 3rd week. For this planning page, I'm using the ellipse selection tool and selecting interesting sections of the digital illustration and then separating that selection using the arrow icon. I'm going to select 7 of those and I'm making sure that they are roughly the same sizes. I have recently created this illustration and I have been playing around shadows, and shadows for me is a bit tricky and I have been playing around it, and in this particular illustration, I had this idea of imagining how this building will interact with the surroundings, and I immediately thought of power lines and trees, and I really enjoyed that process and it made the illustration more interesting for me, so I think I will incorporate that type of shadow to my future digital illustrations. And if you want to see the process on how I drew this building, make sure that you are subscribed because I will be sharing that soon, and if it is already uploaded, it will be linked in the description box below. Now let's add the header of this page, which is November 21 to 27. After that, I have adjusted the grid size of the drawing guide again so that I can add the writing guide of the daily spaces. When adding the writing guide, I usually just use the monoline brush in the lowest size, but I'm not sure if the setting of this brush is the default one from Procreate, but if it is not and you want to use it too, you can just try and see what size suits your digital planner. And I also almost forgot to add the dates in the daily spaces, so let me do that. For the journaling page of this week, I just hid the dates and then added more lines to the writing guide. And that is the journaling page for this week. On to the last weekly page layouts. For the planning page, since the last week of November is just 3 days, I am adding the full digital illustration to the left side of the page, and on the right side, I also did that, but I adjusted the opacity of the digital illustration so that I can use this as my planning area. I first added the header, which is November 28 to 30, and set that up with the same style as what we did on the other weekly planning setups. And then of course, add the writing guide. The same as what we did in the 3rd weekly planning page, I am adding the dates and lowering their opacity so that they can blend in the background of the daily planning page. For the journaling page, I added a big oval where I will be writing on for journaling sessions. And of course, adding the writing guides again. Now that the designing is done, we can now export these different designs as PNG files. Just make sure that you have turned off the visibility of the background layer and the layer where the notebook image is located, then export them as PNG files. I'm saving them in my photo library just to make accessing them easier later in the Keynote app. Now that all of those are exported, let's go to the Keynote app. To add those elements, go to the correct slide and in the picture icon above, select photo and video and then choose the correct image. I'm just going to repeat that on all of the pages and slides. Since this notebook is already linked, I can just export this as a PDF file and import it to GoodNotes. And this is the flip through of my digital planner for the month of November. I hope you enjoyed creating with me, and if you want to check out my Skillshare classes, I have added the link in the description box below, and until next time, bye!